Hey, what's going on? I'm going to do a little drive and jive. Talk to you guys today about audio production tips. You saw my introductory video basically covering some of the topics. One of the very first topics that I'm going to cover, I'm just going to get into it briefly today, is discussion between whether or not you should use a Mac or a PC. Now, I want to start off by saying that it really doesn't matter. It's preference. It is also based on your budget, your comfortability, and what is it that you want to accomplish. If you want to make beats, you will not need a powerful system. In fact, you could probably do that on an iPhone or an iPad or even one of your Android devices. There's plenty of applications out there for you to use. So for instance, if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, you could use GarageBand. I believe Cubasis by Steinberg has something that you can use for recording as well for making beats. Now, I'm going to just keep this strictly to Mac versus PC in terms of laptop or desktop, because eventually we're going to get into more heavy lifting, such as mixing, mastering, things of that nature. So I think it's more valuable of your time and money to invest in a computer that has enough processing power to be able to handle those kinds of tasks. So what's the difference and why would I go one way or the other? We'll start with PC. PC is very simple. It has an open system. It's going to allow you to make changes to the system itself. A lot of people like the fact that they can open most of them up and do their own kind of work. If that's you, go for a PC. If you like a closed system that's secure and a lot of the applications work across the board and it's very simple and you can just get in and start working, then I'll recommend Mac. I switched from PC to a Mac basically for the reason that I didn't want to run antivirus software in the background, which slows down your processor. You have to do a lot more updating. I just didn't want to tweak the system. So for me, switching to Mac made more sense. Stable. I have a Mac. I've had a Mac Pro, MacBook Pro. I currently run a Mac Mini, and the reason I like those is because I can get 5 to 8 years out of those systems and continue to make music. I took a break for a while. I had a Mac Pro. I sold it. I picked up a Mac Mini, and what's funny is it works. It actually does what I needed to do. I upgraded the RAM to 16 gigs of RAM, and one of the things that you're going to want to make sure of is that you have a processor that's capable of handling what you're going to actually be using it for. So if you're going to make beats, you're not going to need a powerful system. If you're on a PC, of course, there's FL Studio, which I don't use, but I know a lot of people who do, and they like it. So make a lot of beats. It's easy to use. It's different than other applications, but a lot of people like it. They make really great beats, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not something that I do because I don't use a PC. If you're on a Mac, you can use Parallels or Boot Camp, and you can run Windows with FL, and then you can bring your beats over. So absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Now, back to where I'm at. I use a Mac. I switched over so I could run Pro Tools. Back when Pro Tools was, I don't want to say more popular, but because it was touted as the industry standard, everybody thought they had to use it. I switched from Nuendo, which is a Steinberg product, just because of who I was learning from. It was simple because I'd seen it a lot. So I used that for a while and then switched to Pro Tools. Pro Tools set me back on a learning curve. I had to learn the Mac operating system, then I had to learn Pro Tools itself. So you lose some momentum in terms of creativity when you have to learn a program. So once I started at Apple, they kept telling me, oh, you got to use Logic. You got to get Logic Pro certified. Learn Logic. You're an audio guy. I didn't listen for a while. I learned GarageBand, thought GarageBand was corny. I just wasn't confident in Logic Pro. And then I actually got a copy, and I started messing with it. And I found it to be very easy to use because I made beats. It was very easy to use the MIDI side of things. And then it was straightforward going from recording audio like instruments, my MPC, my keyboard, my turntables at the time. I was using 8 channels in, so I was able to do more of what I wanted to do. The mixing was great. I just found it to be easier to use, and it allowed me to remain creative musically. So Mac versus PC, I really don't see the versus. I just think it's going to boil down to your preference, what you're comfortable with, and what you want to do. I highly recommend that whatever computer you purchase, if you want to go further than just make beats, you want to mix, master, record, make sure you get a nice powerful processor, whatever the system requirements are for the software. I would exceed that as much as your budget allows. So if you're using Reaper, if you're using Ableton, if you're using FL, you don't need a lot of processor. If you're going to use Pro Tools, if you're going to use Studio One, if you're going to use Logic Pro, if you're going to use Cubase or Nuendo, you're going to want to make sure that you get a nice hefty machine. Internal storage, or the capacity of the hard drive, is also important. Make sure that if you get a SD or a flash drive, you want to start out, at least start off with 512 gigs, because you have to install all of your applications, plugins, things of that nature. Now, I use Complete, it's Native Instruments Complete. I use that for a lot of my instruments, and also Logic Pro has a very large sound library. So internally, all of my Logic Pro loops and all that stuff is stored internally. I use Splice, and so I only download what I need from Splice, and then I save it on my external drive. Also, all of the music that I record, all of the tracks, all of the audio, it's all being recorded to an external hard drive. So I have, right now it's a rotational drive. It's 4 terabytes. It gives me a lot of leg room, no pun intended, for recording. Also, keep in mind that whatever's recorded will be recorded into the external drive. Then it will have to pass back through your processor in your computer and then through your audio interface out to your speakers. So there may be latency. In the next episode, I'm going to cover things like that, start talking about the DAWs, and start talking about things of that nature. So really, the thought I want to leave you with is this. Make sure that you budget for a computer that will not only meet your needs, but will exceed it. How much time can you get out of that computer, and where do you want to go? If you just want to make beats, you don't need a super powerful machine. You could even use an iPad or an Android. If you want to do recording, mixing, mastering, you're going to want to get yourself some kind of computer. All right, so I appreciate you guys listening to me. These are very, very basic beginner tips, but I know that some people would value this, and also I like talking about it, so it's really something that I enjoy. Until the next episode, when we get real, then I'll start showing you guys some of what I do, and I hope you enjoy that as well. All right, man. Peace.